Cyberpunk. It's the name of an ever-growing franchise spanning a tabletop RPG, a video game, a dead card game, 2 card games in the works, and an anime, with 1 in production. Cyberpunk has absolutely earned its place among the greats, both as a genre and a franchise. Breaking down the word into its constituents, you're left with cyber, a prefix used to define words like cybernetic, cybersecurity, cyberspace, and the like. The prefix relates to computers, information technology, the internet, and the like. When someone uses a word predicated by the prefix cyber, you know they're talking digital. We're left with punk. Punk was a movement that emerged in the mid-1970s that spat out raw anti-establishment rebellion. Characterized by aggressive clothing style, aggressive music, and aggressive disdain for the powers that be, the punk movement can't be summed up by pure words alone. Punks stand on general principle for whatever it is they believe in, and they kick the teeth in of the oppressor, and I respect that. With the breakdown of the word cyberpunk in mind, there's one character in the franchise that stands out amongst the crowd when I think of cyber and punk, and that's Rache Bartmoss. This man, though his life was short, lived and breathed the net, and all of his actions reflected the belief of the free and open flow of information, which would also dictate the fall of the net as the world knew it. Bartmoss's life was storied and checkered, and today I'd like to share that with you. Fair heads up, there are only a few verifiable dates I could find, so you might hear at some point quite a bit. When looking at the early lives of netrunners, you'll notice a bit of a trend, at least through my poking and prodding I did. Netrunners start early, at least the ones with information on when they started. Spider Murphy started when she was 9, Lucy Cucinato started when she was 7, and then there was Bartmoss. According to the book Rache Bartmoss's Guide to the Net, Bartmoss started when he was just 4 or 5 years old. His age also contributed to why it is that he used his real name instead of a pseudonym, as he was entirely too young to realize that you're not supposed to do that. Quoting the book, by the time he knew it was a stupid move, he was good enough that it didn't matter. Bartmoss wasn't entirely immersed in cybercrime, however. In 2004, one company would fit his criteria of employment. Their name was CCI Development. At this point in time, Bartmoss would both write the company their database systems and write the daemon programs. As a side note, when I was doing my research, I noticed Bartmoss's name and the name of the company seemed to be rewrites. Rache's name was originally Roche, and CCI Development was originally CGI Development in the Cyberpunk 2013 core rulebook titled A View from the Edge. The name change shows up both in the Cyberpunk 2020 core rules and Rache Bartmoss's Guide to the Net. Anyway, his employment would only last a year there as, well, his usual prankster character took over. I quote, "Unfortunately, Bartmoss dropped a few surprises into the database code, including a full political movie. When word got back to the company, they fired him. Within a week, their entire computer system had fried its own brains and the company went belly up. In the long run, his employment wouldn't really matter," and I quote again, "Rache himself sold the source code to the daemon programs to several software houses simultaneously and made enough money that he never had to work again. Of course, each publisher thought they were getting exclusive rights, so they all wanted his scalp too. They just didn't understand that Rache doesn't believe in exclusive rights." After this, Spider Murphy's father would go on to wipe his SIN off the state database. What is a SIN? It stands for State Identification Number. Basically, it's a card that carries your name, date of birth, criminal and tax history, as well as your DNA pattern. Without it, you can't work or take part in state or federal elections. Though in the cyberpunk world, I don't think state or federal elections really matter. He was 17 and completely unemployable, with a criminal history longer than a speech from Neil deGrasse Tyson. Spider Murphy would track down Bartmoss when she was 13 and he was 17, to warn him about the erasure of his SIN. Bartmoss had taken a liking to Murphy and began to train and run the net with her, along with 2 others operating under the handles of Dog and Edger. Finally, just after the Pacifica region of the net was set up, Bartmoss and Alt Cunningham would run this portion of the net, with Cunningham describing it as her best net running memories. Before moving on, I thought this was a bit funny. While I was researching this portion, and do understand that most of the early life of Bartmoss comes from this one book, Rache Bartmoss's Guide to the Net, I saw there was one company Bartmoss wouldn't comment on except for a singular phrase. It pertains to the company named Internet. Internet seems to be a middleman company that handles bills, shutoffs, and startups, even though all the tech is owned by a company named WorldSat. Apparently, as according to Cyberpunk 2020, Internet is so powerful even Arasaka pays their net bill on time. Bartmoss states, "I ain't gonna talk about Internet, just do as they say. They don't own the net, they are the net." I didn't think there was a company that was so powerful even Rache Bartmoss wouldn't shit on them. This is, again, where we see some of the at some points. So here's how the research goes. I used the wiki for a structured timeline, then I'd consort the source books I have for more context, as well as other notable information pertaining to Bartmoss I found interesting. As such, things I can't directly verify, like Rache Bartmoss's date of birth, have been omitted. I'll admit I might be looking in the wrong places for his date of birth, but I digress. At some point in the early 2010s, Bartmoss moved into a Conapt building and began working to make it an absolute fortress. He dumped large amounts of money into displacing and replacing tenants who did not have neural processors installed with ones that did. He would then secretly install personality programs onto these individuals specifically for surveillance and protection. By 2019, he had an entire Conapt of drones. There's an entire mission in which your team raids said Conapt to that spoiler territory, so we'll wait. And it's time for another brief interjection. Before we move on, I feel it's necessary to discuss the state of the net before and after the Ihara-Grubb transformation algorithms, as well as the algorithms themselves. Janice A. Grubb was the tech wizard who wrote the first iteration of net interface programs alongside the Kenjiri brothers Nobuhiko and Tsuneto Kenjiri from the cyber modem company Kenjiri Technologies. Grubb did the design work and Nobuhiko would translate the data into sensory data. This iteration of the net provided the most customization for the individual, as some people would lay out their version of the net with the design of a medieval dungeon, others would implement the designs of a space station, and others still would induce something out of an acid trip. Back to the company Internet. In 2009, during the mob war of Night City, Internet would poach both Janice Grubb from Kenjiri Technologies and one Nobuhiko Ihara, not Kenjiri, from Zetatech, and those two would redesign the net from the ground up. The redesigns would level the playing field for users and remove these customization options. The officially named Ihara-Grubb transformation algorithms would release in September 2014, and the world was sent into absolute panic. I quote, "Everyone was afraid the net would go down, possibly permanently. There were runs on banks. Commerce was shut down." To put it into terms we can relate to, imagine a situation where the Y2K panic was caused by the shift from Web 1.0 to Web 2.0, and that shift took place in 10 hours. During the 10 hours that the Ihara-Grubb transformation algorithms were shaping the net, Rache Bartmoss was injecting his own line of change in the form of both the data crash virus and the rabbits, which we will explain when relevant. During his viewing of the transformation algorithms, he remarks that his heart stopped for about 10 seconds, as according to his life support systems. 1 year later, he would have a fling with a groupie named Kimi Tara, who would leave him for the next media personality. he would completely swear off physical relationships afterward. Alright, this is it, ladies and germs, the home stretch. A lot of stuff goes down right here. The 2020s were an absolute shit show, mostly because of the Fourth Corporate War. These events would shape Night City from the 2040s through the 2070s and more than likely beyond. So, in 2020, Rache's heart would stop for a second time, permanently. His life support machine sensed this change and supercooled his body, allowing him to hold on for another 2 years. His undeath was anything but boring though. He'd finish the guide to the net with Spider Murphy's help, take part in the extraction of Soul Killer 2.0 from Arasaka headquarters, and release the Succubus 3 program, styled after Murphy's net icon, which was kind of a final prank on Spider Murphy. Now, Bartmoss stirred up a bunch of mess during the raid for Soul Killer, as part of his terms for agreement was unfettered access to Militech data fortresses, which he demolished along with a few unrelated parties. Bartmoss's signal would be tracked to his Connapt fortress, and a team of edgerunners would be dispatched to end his life. This was an entire mission module in Firestorm Stormfront, page 138. You can play it right now given you have the materials. It's time for the payoff. Bartmoss would contact Murphy and ask her on a date in the net. During this date, right before he was killed, he would activate the rabbits and the data crash virus, trashing the net permanently. The actual release took place on June 3rd, 2022. The spellbook note from Cyberpunk 2077 describes it pretty well. It reads, "Oh fuck, he actually did it. Bartmoss unleashed the data crash. Whole nets falling apart before my very eyes. Data fusing together, fortresses melting like ice cream, ones and zeros flooding the information highway. Global stock markets losing its shit. Dow Jones dropped by hundreds in a single hour. Kang Tao's CEO committed suicide. Natwatch is running around like a headless chicken. Holy fuck! Say goodbye to the old order. Death to corpse. Whoop!" So what are these viruses Bartmoss released into the net? Well, as we read above, the data crash was a virus responsible for absolutely decimating data fortresses set up by megacorporations and releasing that stored info into the net. RABID stands for Roving Autonomous Bartmoss Interface Drone. These are AI-created Bartmoss used to target netrunners and AI that are protecting these data fortresses. 3/4 of the net was absolutely fried due to these AI drones. And without Bartmoss around to flip the kill switch, their purpose fulfilled, they began to mutate and attack anyone jacked into the net or any AI lucky enough to cross their path. The data crash and the rabbits being separate entities comes from Cyberpunk Red. Page 255 contains 2 passages that denote the differences, as going to the fandom wiki states that the data crash is an event and the rabbits are the virus. The first passage reads, "What Rache Bartmoss didn't include in this little soliloquy is that he was doing more than just watching. Bartmoss was also working, infiltrating his data crash code right into the IG transformations that would run the net, using a backdoor he set up months earlier on Manny Ihara's computer. Knowing something of Ihara's proclivities, Bartmoss had made it look like a hentai anime porn file." I did this take for about 30 minutes and this is the best I could get. I apologize. Back to it. In short, whereas most viruses must infect a computer system, the data crash was automatically loaded into every single computer that ran the net. Period. The result is that there was never any chance to stop the spread of the data crash. It was as if every copy of Windows, an ancient and long obsolete operating system of the 1990s, had been coated with a virus built in. The second passage reads, "Even more disastrous, Bartmoss left yet another surprise lurking in the bowels of the net, a self-replicating virus that strongly resembled himself, based on a twisted version of the Soul Killer program, and later dubbed RABIDS, Roving Autonomous Bartmoss Interface Drones. Rabids were AI killer programs designed to resemble the late Bartmoss, created as a last thumb in the eye to his corporate enemies. Powerful, homicidal, and ubiquitous, they infested the besieged net in even greater numbers. I thought this pertinent to explain, as some of you watching may have read the wiki, and I expressed earlier that it shouldn't be taken verbatim. That's also why I haven't really touched on Bartmoss's love confession, because I'm not sure. The death of the old net wasn't the return to the haven of free information that Spider-Murphy thought it would be, however, as Netwatch would erect the Black Wall, blocking off the old net and set up hundreds of local subnets that corporations ran incredibly strict. The third entry of the Spellbook data shard expresses her lamentations as such. Bartmoss was wrong. Everyone was wrong. The net was a mirror held up to our thoughts and dreams, our lives. Bartmoss shattered it into pieces, thinking that would be enough. But as it happens, you can still see your reflection in every shattered piece of glass. Now instead of one mirror, we have thousands of them. Every corp, government, gang now has their own net they rule with an iron fist, with no regulation, no accountability. Surveillance hasn't disappeared. In the hands of those who govern us, it's only gotten worse. They're like modern-day fates with optic cables of our lives wrapped around their chrome fingers, ready to be cut at a moment's notice. They hear our frustrations, they look upon our futile rebellion, and they laugh. They laugh so hard the whole world trembles at its very core. After Bartmoss's death, no body would be recovered until the 2070s, when V would find a shard detailing a notice of expiration put out by Revere Courier Services, with contents to be disposed of as detailed in a contract. This would lead him to the municipal landfill, where he would find Bartmoss's slowly decomposing remains, alongside his cyberdeck, the latter of which would almost kill the netrunner Nyx if not for V's quick thinking, because Bartmoss would absolutely put tricks on his own cyberdeck just in case it fell in somebody else's hands. And that about covers it. That last little portion about the 2070s is how I led into finding Rache Bartmoss's remains in my playthrough of Cyberpunk 2077. You've got a couple different ways to find his remains, but I didn't exactly continue in after the Spellbound quest. Anyway, this is more of a Cliff Notes video of the greatest hits of his life. There's a whole lot more detail when you go through and you actually look at the source material for this guy. It's like 7 source books, 3 interviews, and 3 data shards from the video game. And different iterations of the demon shards that he wrote in 2004 are used like all the way up until the 2040s, only really being replaced in the 2070s by quick hacks. At any rate, thank you for watching my first lore video. I mean, this is the first, and I'm kind of proud of how it came out. Couple things before I completely close it out. Really, just one. I finally have a shipping label for the Night City 2045 source book that I pre-ordered in early April. So sometime next week that should show up. I'm not really banking on it due to the fact that it's 4th of July weekend. I don't see it showing up, anytime soon. So we will unbox and take a look at that next week. And yes, I did watch the Edgerunners trailer, and I do have something on it, but I don't know if I'm going to release it. I might have already missed my window anyway, so I'll just keep an eye out for more Edgerunners 2 news. And finally, if you think I have earned your subscription, please go ahead and do so. I would very much appreciate it. And maybe even a like. Who knows? But I have to go. So remember to be safe, because living on the edge ain't for everybody.